check this story out. It turns out that the Taliban, okay, has been getting, check this out. They have been getting since 2021. I don't know if you heard about this. Almost $3 billion in cash from the UN. We're giving the cash to the UN, and they're giving it to the Bank of Afghanistan. And according to this report on ProPublica, which is a very reputable reporting journalistic website, they're saying that most of this is going to the Taliban, like to terror. If you go down here and read further, it explains how this grift is happening. There was a special report done, and it says most of the money that's going in cash to the UN is ultimately coming from U.S. taxpayers. Now and it says John Sopko, the Inspector General, is quoted as, "It's going to a terrorist group. The Taliban are a bunch of terrorists." No kidding. Now look at this. Look at this. This is actual photos of $100 packs of $100 bills. The Bank of Afghanistan tweeted. Now they're saying that in this tweet from 2022 says that they're showing the photos. It's humanitarian funds, which is being unloaded at Kabul. That is stacks of cash. Now, yes, they're saying it's humanitarian, but check this article out here. Tim Burchett. Let me change this one here. I know. I'm just like, this is crazy to me. Let's see here, Tim. Let's see here. Here it is. Representative Tim Burchett. Am I saying that? Burchett. He is he's a Republican, and he's one of the guys that rang the dinner bell and said, "Hey, your tax dollars are going straight to the Taliban." And they took a nice photo for us right here. Nice family photo. I guess Tim has a podcast, and I follow him on X, and he comes outside after his votes, and he talks. He has his camera, and he tells about what's going on and what they're voting on and stuff. Listen to this here. On his podcast, there's a guy he interviewed, and he goes by the name of Legend, who talks about these payments. He's an Afghan-American, former U.S. Army, non-commissioned officer who was deployed to Afghanistan multiple times. He says the money does end up feeding and supporting the Taliban. This is crazy right here. The United Nations, this is what got me, flies the cash from the Federal Reserve of New York, drives up, gets the cash, and then they put it on a plane. They fly bundles of cash, we saw a picture of it, to Afghanistan. They put it in the Afghan Central Bank, managed by a terrorist who's on the active U.S. sanctions list. Then the bank holds an auction for the American cash, okay, where groups bid to take those dollars and convert it to the local currency. So you can imagine how rich a $100 bill is. Probably what, 4,000. What is their
rupees?
Yeah, they're Afghani. It's called Afghani. They take those and they convert it to the currency. Every week, the winner of the auction is someone associated with a terror group ties to Al-Qaeda. That's crazy. And I guess they just voted for another 10 million to go to Afghanistan. I'm blown away. What do you think about that? That's crazy. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Actually, I've known about this for a while.
Okay. I just found out about it.
Right after the evacuation, where we ran away, and
that went really well.
We gave them a bunch of cash.
Okay, I think I remember that.
And it was for humanitarian efforts. And first off, the Taliban isn't a terrorist organization. Okay, the Taliban is a Afghan militia.
Okay.
Okay, Al-Qaeda is a terrorist organization.
Okay.
Al-Qaeda would just hire and they would contract up the Taliban to protect them.
Okay.
The Taliban, just like Osama bin Laden, he hired the Taliban to protect him in the hills of Afghanistan.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
So there's an Afghan government that functions barely like a Gulf government.
Yeah.
But the real government, the real police are the Taliban.
Okay.
They call the shots in Afghanistan.
So they're the government, and Al Qaeda is the terrorist organization puppet.
Al Qaeda is just a bunch of gangsters that run around.
Yeah.
That's not Al Qaeda, but there's Al Qaeda in Africa. There's Al Qaeda in the Philippines.
That's
There's
true.
Al
They're actually,
Qaeda.
yeah, pretty heavy in the Philippines.
They're a
Okay.
franchise. Okay,
Yeah.
there's no Taliban in the Philippines, right? But the Taliban, they're trained fighters from the hills of Afghanistan.
Okay.
So when you watch something on that's political and they say, "Oh my God, we're funding the Taliban," like, yeah, they're in charge of Afghanistan. And if you hear of the Afghan government is the Taliban. That's
Okay.
what they really are.
Okay.
So when they say we're giving money to the Taliban, yes, we are, but that's who handles everything.
So you
So
don't think it's going to terror or them as a terror organization? You're just saying it's that's we are you saying we're misunderstanding
The
that?
Taliban is not a terrorist organization.
Okay. But
They're
in
not.
now the congressman in his on his podcast said that the
He's a dummy.
it's going to
He's a dummy.
so you don't believe any of this that it's going to terror?
Uh, is
You
it
don't
going to terror? I guess. I mean,
okay.
are they buying like Wonder Bread? Probably.
No, hold
Are
on.
they
Let me
buying
okay,
fuel?
so if money goes to Al Qaeda, well,
Yeah.
first of all, you don't think it's going to Al Qaeda. You think it's going to the Taliban as a government and they're taking care of the people.
I don't know where all the money's going. I don't know where all the
Well,
money's going.
okay, me neither. We're going off the reporting.
Sure.
Do you think it's fake news? Like, do you just not believe it at all? I'm just wondering. I'm
It's
trying to
not
baseline this with you.
it's not fake news.
Okay.
It's being reported by a dummy. That congressman is a dummy.
Okay, but
That guy is
but the watchdog group also and the inspector general issued a report,
who
so it did come
cares?
from a source. Okay, so you don't believe
I
it
mean,
is
no, I believe it.
okay.
Okay. I believe it every word of it.
Okay.
But if you don't want it happening, then don't give them money.
Well,
If you don't want, them buying AK-47s with cash,
well,
don't
I
give them
agree.
money.
That's my point. Yeah, why are we giving? That's my point. That's why I'm bringing it up on the podcast here. Is it's insanity to me that we're giving them anything that we can't manage. But see, we're not giving it to them. We're giving it to the UN, and the UN is giving it to them.
The
Right?
UN is a corrupt and incompetent organization.
Okay.
That's just that's just a
It
fact.
just to me,
Okay,
it's like all. It looks like money, and then there's an auction. Okay, it just looks like money
we're
laundering.
lucky
So we agree.
if we get money from the UN. We're lucky the money even makes it there. Okay,
I
because
know.
they launder it.
Yeah. Can
They
you
probably
imagine?
take a piece of it
Yeah.
while they're doing that out. But it's just another example of death by a thousand cuts,
Yeah.
wasting time, wasting money. But this congressman is a dummy. Right? He's sounding the alarm on nothing.
So you
This
don't
is
think it's a
old
big
news.
deal? You personally don't think it's a big deal? We gave 3 billion in five
So
years, 4 years.
what if they said the Taliban bought food for little girls that money?
They
What
did.
if they
Sorry, say
buy
it
food
again.
for villages? What if the Taliban used the money to buy food for villages to feed people?
But we don't know they're not. We don't know they're doing it, but we don't know they're not. So you're saying it's possible they are using the money correctly.
I'm not, you have to pick your poison here, right? So like, do you want the Taliban and Al Qaeda hooking up and becoming a force together again, or do you want to feed little girls in Afghanistan, feed people, and maybe open up a school or build a road where they're not so crazy, where they're not so out of control, right? Maybe give them some fucking Wi-Fi so they can learn a little bit more
I
and
agree
enrich
with
their
that.
lives.
Yeah, I mean
So, but
it's tough because we can't be. We used to be over there, but now we're not right. So we can't do the thing. We can't manage the money, right? We can't do the good things that we'd want, right? Like, I agree with that. Like
what I'm saying is this congressman is a dummy, and this
he
guy
might
who's
be
leaking this guy is saying this stuff like it's news. It's not news. It's
interesting.
just another example of wasteful spending, giving it to a militia group, and some of that money probably is funded to Al Qaeda for operations or to buy armor, or to buy weapons, or to buy fuel for vehicles. I'm not saying that doesn't happen,
Yeah,
but if you don't want it happening, then don't give
that's my point.
Afghanistan a bunch of
Yeah, we
money.
should.
Don't give the
That's my
UN a
point. Is we
bunch.
shouldn't be giving them any money. at all. But what you
But
said
the truth is,
is interesting to me.
maybe if we gave them money, then they would build a road and they wouldn't be so angry at the time.
I mean, yeah, because okay, let's be honest, the Taliban needs food, right? People need food, they need necessities. So it's not like they're going to get everything and just like create bombs and buy bullets and start killing people. They're living off of it,
Remember,
right?
the Taliban is
So
not, they're not a
meaning
terrorist organization.
what's that?
They're not a terrorist organization.
Okay,
They're
I'll
a,
say
they're,
that's the first
they're
time
a
I've ever
militia.
heard it broken down like that. So I'll say Al Qaeda when I'm saying terror and Taliban for government, but that makes sense.
They're a
Um,
militia group that keeps order in Afghanistan.
yeah,
That's it. Al Qaeda is the Chick Fil A of running around. Al Qaeda is in the Philippines, Al Qaeda in Africa, Al
yeah.
Qaeda in here, Al Qaeda in India.
Chick Fil
Right? That's
A. Chick
they're
Fil
the
A doesn't blow
franchise
your.
there.
They won't blow your legs off with a roadside bomb if you don't buy the right nuggets.
Well,
Um,
don't invade their country, and they won't blow your legs off.
I agree with that 1,000%. It's interesting because I didn't think that through what you said about the money will probably go to people that need it there somehow. I mean, sure, the warlords are going to take their cut or whatever. I'm just calling them that. You call them a government. I think most people hear Taliban and they think mean, nasty killers, but call me crazy. But I understand the distinction you're making. And yes, when have we, I guess, when has the Taliban or Al Qaeda actually done an attack against us recently? Not recent, right? We haven't seen it in a while. We've dismantled them pretty much. I just thought it was wild. Now, I happen to believe the congressman. You don't. Maybe I'm naive. It just sounded like that. Maybe I want to believe in like nefarious money laundering. And I just totally bought in on it. I thought, man, that sounds like they're
No,
doing that because they're a bad
I
guy.
believe every word he's saying. I
Okay.
believe it. Okay, I'm just saying he's reporting useless information. Oh, the sky is blue, water is wet. Like, can you believe they're laundering money? Yeah,
I
no shit,
see.
Sherlock. Like, yeah, we know this. Like, we gave them a bunch of money when we first did the evacuation. We gave them like $1 billion in cash. Okay, they drove around in our vehicles, flying our helicopters.
I
Remember
know.
Millie, the big dummy, left all our equipment there.
Yeah.
Biden, right? Complete failure, embarrassment to the nation with this evacuation. But I mean, you have to pick your poison.
Do you think
Um,
deep down it's a way of us kind of paying them off and like keeping them chill so they don't have a reason to attack us?
it's the back window probably to keep them at bay. To say
Kind of
like
protection money, like,
here's some money, go buy pizza.
that's true because the truth is, like, the more people are hungry, the more that they're in pain, the more that they feel disenfranchised, and the more they feel disadvantaged, the more aggressive they're going to be, more violent they could be. And it makes sense if you start here's some American dollars. You know, I would think the truth is, and this other question came to me, how how what do you think the size of their economy is in American dollars, right? It seemed like to me, God damn, $1 billion could be like their one year of their economy. Does that sound crazy? Or it just seemed like, man, their
Yeah,
economy is
I
probably
don't
like, you know, it
I
seems like
don't
we're
know what they're.
funding that nation, completely with that. Like feels like a
I
billion
mean,
dollars for one year could fund the entire operation over there. Like the nation. It's so small.
well, would you rather them grow heroin?
They probably still are. No, I mean I would not rather that. I
Because
suppose.
that was the number one export from Afghanistan with poppy seed, which is used for heroin.
Yeah,
So
they're probably
that's
still doing
why
it and giving it to the
that's
UN. Maybe
why
it's drug money.
that's
Maybe
why
it's,
the farmers wanted that's why the farmers wanted to kill our troops because we would show up and burn their poppy fields.
burn their
And they would
fields
say,
down.
"How can I make a living and I'm poor?" And they say, "We don't care. We're to burn your poppy fields up."
Right, because we were just scorched earth on them.
And then we started guarding the poppy fields because we realized if we guard the poppy fields, they won't kill us.
Yeah, that's true. We
So
were. Now, so do you think that Trump's gonna, in general, like cut off funding like that, or do you think, okay, whatever, 10 million this year, not that big of a deal. We had bigger fish to fry. Or do you think the
Trump, I
government?
think Trump is a pragmatist. He understands. You know, like Rob, maybe the concept of kind of like pick your poison, take your losses where you can, because
Yeah,
he'd much rather give money to the Taliban to, like the Taliban controls the oil fields, they control the
yeah,
hotels down there. They're basically the militia, they're basically the police of Afghanistan. That's what they really are, right?
yeah. I mean, that is you're
So,
right. That is the government. But now they're yeah. I mean, you could say there's all these bad things about the Taliban, right? Because obviously
well,
we're not. But
that's
you
why
could all
Trump,
day
right?
long you could say that about them, right?
So when
Okay.
these idiot Democrats, right, they go like, Trump met with the Taliban, Trump invited them to Camp David, those are the enemy, right? Because they're just dummies.
Yeah.
They don't understand the nuance of what's happening. Is Trump talking to the Taliban because Trump knows the Taliban is actually that's who controls Afghanistan.
Yeah, no, and I didn't have a
Now,
problem with it at all. I thought that's smart. You got to deal with the people in charge. That's the way it works. Now,
so you may have to give them some cash and say, go buy some bread, go put it in a street light, rather
yeah,
than fight them in the dirt somewhere.
yeah. Now, well, now back to Trump. That's a good point. You brought up Trump having the convo. Remember, Trump pulled out a picture of the guy's house and said, "Hey, I can just blow you up at any time." If and Trump said, "If one more American is killed." Now he was talking to the Taliban. He wasn't talking to Al Qaeda. So you're telling me they're not involved in hurting, terror, or do you think Trump was like, "That's the message you
There's
sent to Al Qaeda"?
Okay, so there's two things we have to clarify is terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, terrorism is creating violence for a political means.
100%. Yes,
The
it's a form of
Taliban never
political
did
pro.
that.
Okay,
They never flew planes into anywhere. They never came to New Jersey to fly drones. The Taliban doesn't do that stuff.
but they were the resistance fighters. So are you going? Is this where you're going? Because we invaded, of course they're going to
We
fight
invaded
us.
their
Okay,
country. Of course,
got it. Okay,
they're going to fight us, right?
no, it
That's
makes
what
sense.
they do. They're a militia group. They protect their community. They protect their villages. We're running around burning poppy fields, kicking
Yeah,
doors in, kidnapping people,
going wild.
taking
Yeah,
them down Guantanamo Bay, right?
yeah.
We're just running around, fucking up their country, blowing
Well,
stuff up.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense.
People don't. People need to read. They need to understand nuance. There's sometimes the media creates like these bad guys, but there really is no bad guy. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, we're all kind of
so
everybody's kind of a bad guy when you really get down to the truth when it comes to these
because
situations.
we were invading their country, so they wanted us to leave.
Yeah,
So
I mean, now we had back then, 20 years ago, we had a good reason in our mind, and I'm not saying look, we had to pay him back. Iraq was the huge mistake, but it did turn out that we did not have quite the plan that we thought we had, and then it continued to go on, and everybody just
then
fucked it
no,
up. Yeah. All right. Well, that makes sense. I was just the way when you were talking about Trump having that conversation, and I recalled, oh, well, Trump did say if something happens to American soldiers, we're going to blow you up. But I guess that message, the Taliban picks up the Taliban bat phone and says, hey, Mr. Al Qaeda, this is what Trump said. Let's chill. And I guess the Taliban, in a lot of ways, probably has heavy influence, right? With Al Qaeda. They're the muscle, right? Like you're saying. So they can like
no, no,
calm
no, 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 no. Al Qaeda
the other way
and the
around.
Taliban are they're two different organizations
But why would Trump talk to the Taliban and say, "Don't blow our soldiers up. I'll kill you" to the leader if they're not connected?
because we were invading their country.
Okay.
We have soldiers everywhere. They're not gonna fight us.
I'm just trying to understand your distinction, and it makes sense. What you were saying makes a lot of sense. I'm just trying to connect the dots with Trump being tough with the Al Qaeda leader. If they're just the government, why would he say, "I'm going to kill you"? Here's your house. If something happens to our soldiers,
Because
but
because
I guess
our
he's just
soldiers invaded their country.
right.
and they said, "We would like you to leave our country," and we said, "No, we're going to burn your poppy fields and shoot
Okay.
your cow
Okay.
and kidnap your men."
Okay, I think I see what you're saying. I do think the Taliban is probably more connected in terror with Al Qaeda than maybe the you see it. I kind of see it as they're kind of intermingled, and I don't disagree that they're going to fight back. That we invaded and the whole thing was a mess. We're trying to get out. I'm just saying that I think if the Taliban gets the money, it's probably going to go to bad things, but I do agree that, yeah, it's probably going to go to some good things too. You have made me think about it a little more than I thought I would. I was a little more like, why are they getting this money? But after we talk about it, it makes my mind is a little more opened up to it because they are probably going to do some good things with it. I suppose for their
I
country,
don't
right?
know if good or
Because we
bad,
blew
but I
their
mean,
country up. we left them with a lot of good vehicles, though. So that was I that's I like talking about that. That made me think. I wasn't really thinking like along those lines.